This podcast brought to you by your generous donations of exposure and experience.
But you'll
I
get.
just called my leasing office and they said that I could actually pay my rent and exposure points now.
They
So
now,
it's pretty
they
cool.
now accept Bitcoin and exposure. You'll get
What
great
the
exposure.
All right, what the fuck is exposure?
Exposure. All right. So imagine you go for a job interview, right?
Yeah.
You make it to the third interview, and halfway through the interview, they tell you it's actually an unpaid internship. But don't worry, because your payment is in the exposure you will gain by my company showing off your work to the masses.
It's real common. Like when I was doing photography, right? I had a job.
That's how you fuck over creative people.
Pretty much. I had a job, so I didn't need any income from photography. And I actually took shit from some photographers because I didn't charge for any of my work. But I was so new that I didn't feel comfortable charging. Like I couldn't guarantee you a product even half the time. But basically, I got people would hit you up and say, "Hey, we want you to come do this event for us." And you'd be like, "Oh, cool, $500." And they'd say, "Oh, well, we weren't thinking about paying, but the exposure you're going to get, man, the people that are going to see your work because of all the websites that we're going to post it on, right? And musicians get it, artists get it. So there's sort of a reoccurring joke meme that, yeah, exactly. I called the power company, and they do in fact accept exposure now for payments, and I understand, much like an internship. I think Adam brings up a good point, right? Just like an internship, there is some value. I didn't mentor with, I don't know what the opposite of that would be. I studied with a couple of photographers when I was in Alabama, some guys that were, infinitely better than me, which most 10-year-olds with a fucking iPhone
well, infinity times zeros.
Yeah, exactly. Still zero. That's what I said. 10-year-olds with an iPhone. And I'd run their gear for them or set their shit up for them, stuff like that, right? And they'd show me some stuff. That's a little different than going and doing a wedding, which I think of the 3 weddings I did, I only got paid for one. But
I can't imagine a worse gig as a photographer.
It's awful, and I would never do another one.
I've DJ'd a few weddings. It's pretty bad too.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I got paid for them though. So
did you?
Good, I guess. Yeah.
I got paid for one of the 3. I got paid pretty decent, and it was in Florida. I was living in Alabama at the time, and I drove down to, I don't even remember where, and I did the shoot and then drove back. Yeah, it was on the beach, so it was like a 4-hour drive at least. But I was dumb, and I loved photography at the time, and just wanted not the exposure, but the experience. Right? I wanted to do a wedding, and after doing a couple of them, I realized the reason that the wedding photographers are as expensive as they are is because it's fucking worth it, right? You don't understand the work that these people put into it, the talent that they have, the work that they've put in to get to where they are. But you're going to have those memories up until you get divorced, and
you'll still have the memories.
Yeah, you'll still have the memories, right? You'll still have the pictures. You need something to throw in the fucking fireplace. But if you're one out of a million fucking human beings and you stay married your whole life, you're going to have those photos and shit for the rest of your life. And they're super quality. And like I said, I've seen some phenomenal work come out of some wedding photographers, right? And
I've seen really bad work come out of weddings.
I was just going to say, one of my favorite things in the world is to like on Facebook and stuff, they'll throw up articles about, right, horrible photographers, musicians, tattoo artists. I love train wrecks. Like, I don't know why. I think Doug was telling me about a Reddit that's basically like an attempt was made or something like that. And it's one of you guys you were telling me about.
There was an attempt is hilarious.
I have to, and I don't think that I've added that yet, but I need to.
/not my job is pretty funny too.
Not my job.
Doing the shittiest version of their job as possible.
One of my favorites, and it doesn't produce gold consistently, is watch people die inside.
I do follow that one. Yeah.
I love that. I think my favorite one was there were 2 military personnel. It was a man and a woman. they were next to this large, I assume it was a ceremonial cannon because, you had to yank a cord to get the motherfucker to fire.
Kind of like me.
Yeah. So, I assume this was a fairly old piece of artillery. And the woman is over there and she's trying to pull the cord and she yanks that motherfucker. And yeah, there's no connotations there at all. But she yanks that motherfucker like 6 times and she's standing at a 90-degree angle to it. So it's like she yanks it and then she yanks it again and then yanks it again and nothing's happening. Yanks it again. And then, like, the dude, you finally see him get disgusted, and then he walks over there, takes the cord out of this lady's hand, yanks that motherfucker one time, and it just boom. And then you just watch that lady just sit there, and she just, immediately her shoulders slumped, her head went down, and you're like,
Think to yourself, her poor husband. So before we hit record, right, of course, we were talking about 9/11. Today is Friday, September 11th. So
it's been 19 years.
And it was interesting because Adam, for those of you that don't know kind of our shtick, is that, Doug and I are both Gen Xers. We're both in our mid-40s. And Adam is basically still a placenta, and he's still an embryo.
Yes, I am. He's still wet behind the ears.
25, so he's 20 years younger than us, and it was kind of part of the reason that we started this podcast was sort of the fun that we have with each other, teasing each other and shit like that. And he mentioned that he was 2 years old when 9/11 happened, and it's
no, he was in second grade.
Second grade. God damn it.
Not 2 years old.
Hey, Dan doesn't math well. I think we've established that, right? And so, anywho, anyway.
Well, that wasn't exactly verbal diarrhea, but I will give you one of these.
Verbal diarrhea.
All right.
I hate both of you. The fact that I get up. I went to bed early. I was binge watching Lucifer on Netflix, and I went to bed so that I could get up and do this. That show is so fucking awful.
I've been watching Mr. Robot.
Yeah.
That is literally like one of my favorite shows now.
I know a lot of people that like it. I never got into it, but I may give it another shot.
It makes you feel better about being batshit if you watch it. Because the main character is more batshit than anyone could ever be.
Yeah, I watched like the first season, so I kind of know the premise and where he's at. But
yeah, it gets
weirder.
He just progressively gets more crazy as it goes on.
Yeah, and that is the only show I've watched because for the most part,
the only show, like that is the only show.
No,
you've ever
he
watched?
hasn't finished his thought, Dan.
Doesn't matter. This is what we do.
Yeah, Dan likes to pick at me before I can complete things. But you know how
him
you'll
so
sit there and you'll watch a show and, it goes through this huge story arc and at the very end of the thing, it turns out it was all a dream or somebody was crazy and they were covering that up the whole time. Those usually just make me physically mad.
Wait. Don't spoil Mr. Robot. I haven't finished.
Yeah, I know, right? He's just like, so anyway. So you know what? let me steer this back.
Well, I haven't seen all of it.
We were discussing, fucking 9/11, and somehow you guys hijacked to Mr. Robot.
Anything about Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot.
Okay, look.
Robot.
So I was in second grade, right? They let me out of school early. They're like, you guys have to go home. And I was like, I don't fucking twist my arm. I'm getting on the fucking bus right now.
Right, second grade.
So I took my bus, went to my babysitter's house, and I grew up in the South. So when I got to my babysitter's house, the news was on, and there were like 2 buildings that were like on fire or something. And she was like, "This was terrorists," and I thought she was saying tourists. And I was like, "That's a strange thing for vacationers to do. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna go play Nintendo 64."
Right. So I would have been about your age, and I think I was. I don't even remember where the fuck I was at. But it's just interesting, to think of somebody who's 25 years old, obviously an adult, and the difference, right? Like you said, second grade, 6 years old, you didn't give a fuck.
I had no idea what was going on.
Right.
Yeah. And I honestly, not to be disrespectful, I didn't really care. I
No, of
was
course
like,
not. And I
I'm
got
out of school early. Fuck
right.
Well,
it.
you
Anybody who's like a 6 year old being, he was 6 years old and you didn't care. That's disrespectful. Fuck off. I think as you get older and you understand what happened, of course, you're like, Jesus, that's fucked up. Right.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting. And it led us to talk about, for Doug and I, that a similarity would have been the Challenger, Christy McAuliffe, right? And the fucked up thing about that is that all of us were, stuck in front of a TV because she was a teacher. And one of you mentioned the whole teaching from space. We were going to do a lesson from space, and it's simulcast all over the fucking world. And you got a bunch of school kids from ranges of, probably second grade all the way up to fucking seniors. And we're all sitting there watching TV, and the fucking thing blows up, and even at 10, I don't think I fully understood. I mean, I did, but you can't grasp at 10 years old. You can't grasp that kind of fucking travesty.
Yeah.
It's just hard to do. But in your generation, of course, of it, but you didn't experience it. And then then you got 9/11. So it's just interesting to see that difference in how. I mean, you would have grown up in a world where the Homeland Department of Homeland Security has always existed for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, and the flight, airplane rules and things like that for the most of your life, or most of your memorable life.
Yeah.
That excuse me, would have been just part of your upbringing. So that's
I
just
do
kind of interesting to
remember
me.
when I was really young, I went to the airport once, like with my mom, and like we went all the way to the gate, and
Right.
then she got on her flight and left.
Right.
And then when I went later in my life to actually fly, I was like, what the fuck is all this?
Yeah, weird story for the same reason. Like when I was younger, when I was about 14 or 15, um, I went to Washington, D.C. to the National Archives. And that's where they've got the Declaration of Independence. That's where they've got the Bill of Rights, Constitution, the whole nine yards. But you've
Yeah, I've
got
seen National Treasure.
yeah, you've seen National Treasure. Well, the thing is
I
like
knew that was coming.
they've got these doors in the front of the place that were like, I think they're something. They're like solid metal, like 6 inches thick. They're, or it may be even thicker. But they're rated for a ridiculous blast. I mean, practically short of dropping a nuclear bomb on top of the building, they're going to be safe. And the first time I went there, well, actually, I've probably been to Washington, D.C. 4 times, but that's neither here nor there. We went in through the doors in the front. And then I went back probably 15 years later. And this was like post 9/11. And there was a lady that was standing guard up in front of the main doors. And I noticed there was a line around the side. And I went up and I talked to her, and I was like, so why aren't the front doors open? And she was like, the front doors haven't been open since September the 11th, 2001. After that day, they bring everybody in through the bottom. And even back then, the first thing that happened when you walked in through a scanner, you pulled all the shit out of your pockets, right. Just like the airport. Now they're doing that stuff, but they're doing these limited groups, and you actually go through the bottom part of the building, and then they take you up some stairs where you can actually go up into it and see it. But it was just a totally different experience.
Yeah. The Mint is kind of like that, but it's been, they have like a gun. The Denver Mint has like a gunner's nest pointed at the front door. And apparently it's been like that ever since they built it. Like the front doors are like fucking ridiculously thick steel doors, and then when you walk in, there's like a machine gun nest pointed at the fucking front door.
I wouldn't know because I've tried to go to the Denver Mint like 5 times, and the weird way that they do their tickets and letting people in and the whole nine. I've never been able to see it the entire time I've been in Denver.
You got to get to the gift shop early in the morning and buy the ticket the same day, because like everyone buys them up real quick in the morning.
I was going to say, I wonder if that has anything to do with keeping it like patterns, right? Because what every Ocean's 11 movie bullshit that you've ever seen, right? They always look for some sort of a pattern or routine to exploit.
And they'll randomly close it. They'll randomly stop selling tickets at a certain time. And I think that's why. So no one can game the system in any way.
Yeah, create any kind of a plan. So that's weird. That's interesting. I honestly didn't even know we had a mint here until you guys were talking about the fact that you could never fucking get to it. There's I've been meaning to go to the zoo here too. I've ridden down by Colorado Springs has one.
Yeah.
And I've ridden by it a couple times and thought, a zoo. And then I guess Cheyenne
has one, and then Denver has one too.
Yeah, so there's definitely, I like zoos. I mean,
the Denver one has a ton of construction right now, though. So, like, if you were going to go nowish, I would wait.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense to do that kind of construction during, zombie apocalypse
when no one's going to come.
No one's out and about, right?
Well, like for me, it's with the exception from a conservation point of view. If you're trying to genetically preserve a species, honestly, I'm not sure how zoos stay in business anymore. Because, I mean, literally, I can get on the internet and let's say, because that used to be the purposes of zoos and circuses and the whole 9 yards were to get these exotic animals in front of people who had never seen them before. And now I can Google search anything in the fucking universe. And, if I want to see a snow leopard,
Yeah, well, I can go on Pornhub, but I'm still trying to get laid.
That's
true.
Nothing like the real thing, Doug.
Game
Nothing
on.
like the real thing.
Yeah, I agree with Adam. I mean, I understand where Doug's coming from, right? But I agree with Adam. I think that there's until you go and you see the enclosure, there's nothing in there, and the tiger or whatever's like, no, fuck y'all, fuck y'all. But it is kind of cool, like the penguins and stuff, and the reptile houses. It's neat to see them in just kind of you're a couple feet away from them, and yeah, I get it. There's glass and shit like that, but I think it's still pretty cool. But I'm sure there has been a decline in profit, over the last 10, 20 years. Be an interesting statistic to kind of look up, right? And see if I like zoos. Circuses have always been kind of sketchy to me. Because again, I feel like you're kind of exploiting the animals. I've known people. I know
there's a reason why they went out of business, dude.
Yeah, I think people knew it, and it became more and more public. And I got a buddy from high school actually that works at the Phoenix Zoo. And what I have found is that most people that work at zoos, I should say the few that I've met, really love their fucking jobs. They love the fucking animals. They love what they do. They take very good care. Yes, I'm sure somebody could pop up some abuse or something. You're going to have that everywhere. But I do believe the majority of those people take what they do very seriously and love what they do. And I think, like Doug said, in some of these cases, you're preserving, well, animals aren't meant to live like that. Well, then you could get on the fucking internet and find where poachers went and slaughtered, 50 rare fucking tigers for their fucking dick tendon and, to grind it up and put it in some sort of bullshit third world snake oil potion, right? I mean,
it's a tea that prolongs your life. So don't talk shit, okay? It really works.
Right, exactly.
All right.
The dicktendontea.com.
You just got to kill like the last of the species and then grind it up into a tea.
Sorry, I still got a fucking cough. I mentioned the zombie apocalypse earlier, and we all three of us at one point have attempted to get COVID tests out here in the great state of Colorado. I think Adams was first, right about the beginning of shit, and then I last week, this week, had all of the symptoms for a couple of days. It hit me fast and hard, and fucking left as quick as it did, and then Doug wanted to go because his mom is flying out, and he just wanted, with me having it, and we had hung out for my birthday last week. He's like, well, shit, I should probably go get tested. So all three of us have had this adventure
of trying to get a fucking
trying
test.
to get a fucking COVID test, right? And they make it look so easy on the news. And I think our esteemed president even said, anyone who wants a test can go get one.
Yeah, it is not a popsicle at 7-Eleven.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Fucking easy. I did learn of yesterday, after kind of bitching about it online, some people did point me in what I believe is going to be the right direction. But all of the, like health insurance apps and stuff, which I think we all used, or Adam actually used a doctor. A doctor said, hey, call this number and they'll get you in. And what was their response, Adam, when you called?
I called them and they were literally like, nah, dude, click. I was like, oh, well, thanks. Thanks for the fucking recommendation, doc.
I went through my health insurance app that then sent me to another app that I think sent me to a website. And they had all these listings, and I'd call and I'd stay on hold forever, which I'm not dogging anybody because I'm sure they're slammed and they're understaffed, and I get that. And they all basically told me that since I wasn't showing symptoms right then and there, that they wouldn't even let, they wouldn't test me. And I was like, well, I had all of the symptoms a few days ago, and I work in an office. I also just think it's a responsibility, if you think that you've had it, to go, get an antibody test or whatever. And they're like, yeah, no. So I kept calling around and getting the same thing, or just being on hold for, I think one place I was on hold for like 30 minutes. I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. And then Doug, you researched quite a chunk yesterday, did you not?
Yep. And the only thing I could find was basically go to the Pepsi Center and wait.
Yeah.
And hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go down to one of the free areas that the governor's Facebook account had posted, and go see. It says as little as 15 minutes. And I feel like in parentheses it says, or as much as fuck you. So we'll see.
There is no maximum.
No. So I'm going to be working from home for a couple weeks. Called my boss and just said, hey, I think it'd be safe if I stayed the fuck home for a couple weeks. And it's not so I know the gambit runs from we should all burrow into holes and hibernate for 6 months. And then it's a government Democrat conspiracy. I get that. I really don't give a fuck what your opinion is, because I have my own and you're not going to change mine. So it's been a trip, man. It really has. And that kind of reminds me of I've been reading a lot about being a motorcycle enthusiast. I was queuing.
Verbal diarrhea.
I was actually waiting for, oh, you ride? So
I didn't realize you owned a Harley. You never mentioned it.
There we go. That's better. So how's your latest album coming out, Adam?
Yeah, it'll be better when I have a place that actually blocks sound.
No, it won't, because it'll still be coming from you. So there's been a lot of discussion about Sturgis lately, right? I have no interest in Sturgis. There was like 500,000 people there this year, and that was like a low number. I don't want to be anywhere where there's 500,000 fucking people. Like I think I've commented before, my inner Ted Kaczynski wants me to go the opposite direction. So, but there was this study, and I'm using air quotes because, dude, this fucking thing, it was done by some economists, and they basically, out of the 450,000 people that went to Sturgis, they estimated that 250,000 of them had COVID and were costing the American taxpayer something like $12 billion because of it, right? It was an exercise in correlation and extrapolation to the nth degree, right? They were using cell phone pings, and they were going from counties that didn't have They were watching cell phones move from counties that didn't have cases, people that went to Sturgis, and then these counties had cases. So they said, "Oh, it's all because of Sturgis." And I'm not defending Sturgis. I'm not defending it or demonizing it. It's whatever, right? But that study, quote fingers again, just irritated the fuck out of me, because one of the things that it did is that mainstream media clung to that, and there was a lot of "I told you so." I told you so. See. And I think the important thing that I want people to understand is that you can manipulate data any way that you want. And these were fucking economists. And like epidemiologists were getting a hold of this, and they're like, "What? No, no." But
Well,
nobody wanted to listen to them at that point. And it went back to and I think Doug has brought the cognitive bias. It went back
confirmation bias.
Okay, confirmation bias. I'm sorry, you're right.
Oh, look, something that proves me right. I will not try to poke holes in this, even though it's paper thin.
Yes, right. And that is the same thing that the QAnon and other people do, and it's ridiculous. It's like, I'm going to take this data that is sketchy as fuck, and I'm going to base my entire argument on this sketchy ass data because it is some kind of data other than because blah 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 said so.
It's like the number 23 is playing out in real life.
It's and all this stuff is just dumb, and it's like
dumb.
I would like to introduce the concept, and I'm sure we've gone over this in some shape, form, or fashion before, but I am a big believer in there is no all. And both sides, as far as the left and the right, once you get more to the extremes, it's just this, it's the red pill, blue pill bullshit that they turn around and feed the masses. If you get somewhere in a rural community and you go to various places and ask them what they think about Muslims, where they have no exposure to what Muslims are, and all they hear is the crap that comes out on the news outlets that they like to frequent. Every last one of them will tell you that, well, there is no such thing as a good Muslim. And I keep telling people there is no all. That people, all Republicans believe this, right. All Democrats believe that.
But it's so easy to deal in absolutes, and people are lazy, so they pick the easiest fucking solution.
Only Sith deal in absolutes. All right, just saying. You learn a lot from Star Wars.
Nerd.
Fuck you, nerd.
Welcome to the Virgin Podcast.
I've got 3 screens and a light-up keyboard. I've always been told. I mean, I've from a young age, in my 20s, which I consider young now. Always beware of always and never. Or never say always or never. Whatever. And as I've gotten older, I very much agree with Doug that you can't lump everybody. You simply just can't. I mean, it just doesn't work. It's dumb to even try. And you're right. I hear the whole, Muslim thing, and of the Muslims that I know, maybe half a dozen, they've all actually been very sweet people. I've done very little research on the Quran, and it's much like the Bible, right? It's got some.
It is the Bible plus a couple chapters. It has the whole Bible in it, and then they added the portion about Muhammad at the end.
It makes a lot of sense, and that was one of the things I was.
And he's got a lot of different phases in his life, dude. He, as far as like Muhammad, he actually has this, wild arc of a story to where, like, earlier on in his life, from my limited understanding
same.
of it. Let me go ahead and throw that out
Right.
there. I am by no means an expert on the
I don't
Quran.
Oh
think
yeah, me neither. I might be wrong about the chapter, but from what I understand, Jesus was a prophet, but he wasn't the
Right.
Messiah.
That's how they
And then
believe.
there was Muhammad, and he was the actual Messiah. So like, it's literally the entire Bible and then a little bit extra.
Right. But there was just like if you take the Bible and you've got the Old Testament and the New Testament, and the Old
Oh,
Testament was
absolutely.
all the, all
Hellish brimfire.
the rape and the
Yeah.
pillage and the blood and
Awesome.
the, it gets it's the, the more extreme version.
It's like God's
And then you
PR
roll
team.
into the New Testament, and then Jesus is all like, yeah, be fucking nice to everybody, which I find it ironic to myself. I just giggle all the time when they talk about Christian conservatives, and if you literally put Jesus Christ up as the Republican nominee, he wouldn't make it because he doesn't support big business and guns.
There's a
But
comedian that has a bit about that, about how right your that wing loves Jesus, but it wouldn't fit, and then they hate Muslims, but it would fit. And it was I'll have to find it and
That
send it to
sounds
you
like
guys.
fucking Carlin.
The guy's good though. I like him. And I've always said the Old Testament versus New Testament was like God's PR team came in and said, whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, so let's back off on
So the
stoning
focus group does not like. They really like barbecue, so we can't do the no pork thing.
Yeah, pork thing's got to go. Pork thing's got to go.
And they
Old
really like wearing like different fabrics. So if we could just take that one out.
well, there was so many wild stories in the Old Testament that the impression that you got from the Old Testament, if that's what you read and you literally studied it cover to cover, you would come to the conclusion that God was a bipolar drunk guy.
Oh, absolutely. He was a dick, right?
Yeah, because there was one story in particular, and I can't remember which chapter it was from, where God basically popped out of the woods and wanted to wrestle somebody and lost. And then
That's not a thing, dude. Shut up. That's not a thing. So God and his roommate Chugs are fucking arm wrestling, right? That's not a thing.
Chugs. Well, let's hold on.
What?
You muted yourself, Dan.
Yep, Dan muted
Because
himself.
I have that light up keyboard that clicks, click, 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 click. So
It's all right. Just stay like that for a little bit.
Did he really come out of a bush and wrestle somebody? I don't know why, but that sounds fake.
God
did Jacob
wrestling.
wrestle with God or angel?
God wrestles Jacob.
He encounters a man who proceeds to wrestle with him until daybreak. In the end, Jacob is given the name Israel and blessed, while the man refuses to give his own name. Jacob then names the place where they wrestled Penuel, face of God, or facing God. So, then there's something about Job wrestling with a. So if you look it up, you got Jacob may have wrestled with God. Job may have wrestled with God.
I wonder if he rolled out like fucking, Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh yeah, we're gonna get it on.
In my brain, I got this vision of Carl Pewterschmidt, like jumping out of the bushes, going, "Come on, wrestle me!"
Come on.
Yeah, that was
See what I'm talking about?
That was a-
bipolar drunk guy.
that was a new one for me. Yeah,
But here's
Yeah,
the thing: people on the
I
Fertile
love
Crescent.
it when I come out with something and you think, Doug's fucking crazy. There's no way this could be right. And then it's like, oh my God, he's fucking right.
Okay, but here's the thing: you could still be crazy,
right.
even though
Right.
it's right.
Again, like I said, enter Ted Kaczynski. I'm not saying he's right, but I understand. All right.
So the people in these days, it's been all but proven that they were on MDMA a lot of the time because it grew naturally, and they definitely did it.
MDMA
And
just grew. The pills grew up out of the ground?
No, it's in a certain type of wood. There's a tree that has it inside the fucking bark.
I knew what you meant. I was just being a dick. That's like
Yeah, the MDMA bush.
yeah,
Fucking-
right. Was it ergot or ergo? I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's ERGOT. And I believe that covens of witches would basically urinate on a bread that was made from a certain type of wheat.
I wish I was that bread.
You don't know if they were MILFs or not. You don't know if they were.
Give yourself a verbal diarrhea.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Verbal diarrhea.
But yeah, then they would use the mold that would grow on it in potions and shit like that, and it apparently was like an LSD psilocybin type reagent thing. Reagent. That's not even the word I meant to use, but whatever.
Yeah, you got it. I understand. It makes you trip fucking balls.
Pretty much.
Well,
So-
yeah, I mean, when you got this guy that's sitting there talking, guy, woman, whatever, that's sitting there talking about a bunch of crazy shit that people can't see. And then there are various unexplained things in the time period because science,
Right.
there practically was none.
They're like, holy shit, it just rained. Oh, write this down. Write this down.
While they're sitting there tripping balls, and then other people go, yeah, that's got to be it because we don't know what the fuck else is going
Right.
on. So,
Right. I mean, the sun was an angry god at one time. And, if you go back to the Norse myths, thunder was, battles in heaven and shit like that. And I get it, right? If you kind of got to look at it like through the eyes of a child, wonder of a child.
What a cool time to be alive, though. Like, wouldn't it be cool
To
to
some degree.
just live like, holy fuck, dude,
Right?
Zeus is going at it up there, bro.
Zeus is pissed.
Dude, fucking mad, dude. Oh my god.
no, I disagree.
There's
It's like that may have been a wild perspective, but yeah, if you could just cut out that one sliver in time to where you didn't know what was going on, but the whole,
Mortality.
going to the
23 years
shitting log, and an old man is
Hey,
24.
Don't. I was gonna say don't piss on the shitting log, but
If you didn't know any better, though, like, it would just be how things were.
ignorance is bliss, right? I think is what Adam is saying.
It's not like if you knew what you know now and you just went back, yeah, it would suck. But if you were there originally, it'd
Right?
be pretty sick. It'd be
Life
like, dude,
was simple,
Zeus is
man.
mad, dude.
Yeah,
You're surrounded by gods. You're just getting fucking.
rape.
Yeah, that's great
Right.
until, the local witch doctor shaman dude is tripping balls one day and you just happen to step foot off the shitting log or something. Because I'm going to keep going back to the shitting log. I'm obsessed with this whole shitting log thing.
Verbal
But,
diarrhea.
Well, thank you.
I never want to see
So-
your porn history ever.
Theshittinglog.com.
Right? I don't. Rule 34, man. If
It's a live feed. It's actually just a live feed.
Well, where actually I got the whole shitting log thing was from there's this fucked up show on Netflix.
Not gonna watch it.
nope.
If it has the shitting log on it, I'm not certain.
Yeah, it's fine. It can be just a me thing, and I don't care.
His shitting log.
There's a show, Norseman,
Oh yeah.
and it was like they turned Vikings on its head and just made fun of the whole fucking thing. There's several hilarious. It's one of those things though. It's got payoffs in awkward spots.
It's got
It's
bits and pieces.
kind of like The Office. It's like, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that think The Office is the most hilarious thing in the universe.
I am not one.
And I'm not really one of them myself. For me, it's got one of those moments, but there are only a few payoff moments in there. And in Norseman, it's pretty similar to that. And like in the very first episode, you've got the chieftain that went over to this rival tribe, whatever else, where one of their slaves had escaped to, and they accused him of holding the slaves, cut one of these dudes' ears off, and they just go home like it's no fucking big deal. All right, you guys have learned your lesson. And then the same guy that cut that dude's ear off, well, old one ear comes up while he's on the shitting log, because they didn't have an outhouse or anything and a hole dug. Literally, you've just got this log that's suspended over something, and you just hang your ass over the end of it and shit.
Yeah, the show's not funny, and it's even less funny to hear Doug explain
So
it.
why wouldn't you just shit on the ground? Why would you climb up onto this log just to shit onto the ground
Because
below?
then you got something to sit on. Have you never gone camping? Jesus, Adam.
I've been camping, but
Sort of
I've
fucking
never
heathen are you?
I've shit without having to sit on something. It doesn't make any sense.
Speaking of shitting in the woods, all of the woods are on fire here.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Just on
Oh,
fire. It's been
Dude, it's the West Coast, Colorado, Oregon,
California.
Washington, California.
There's been all kinds of fatalities and fucked up shit. I went last Sunday for my birthday. I was out riding and got up into Estes Park, and it got just black as night. It was fucking creepy. And I thought, well, there was no rain in the forest. And then it clicked. I was like, oh, fuck, that canyon fire. I can't remember the name of it. And it got up in there. And then I got morbidly curious, right? So I started heading up towards Fort Collins, up near where the fire was at, Loveland. And it was post-apocalyptic as fuck. It was like the road. There was ash falling down from the sky and pine needles, burnt pine needles just floating down out of the fucking sky, It was creepy as fuck and orange. And I don't think any of the photos and video and stuff really does it justice when you see it for yourself, and the air quality is shit, of course.
Have you seen the pictures of San Francisco, dude? It's like completely orange.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was up north of here.
But it's San Francisco, so like if it burns, I think we'll be okay.
Not a lot of people will care. So wasn't that one the California wildfires? This most recent one, I read that it was because of where they believed it was a gender reveal pyrotechnic that fucking popped and set all this shit on fire. And I'm just like, fuck,
that's hilarious.
Fuck you, people. It was like the assholes here last year that we were in a super drought, and they had been battling stuff, and these assholes were going out with tracer rounds, which are magnesium, I think, or
yeah. Regardless, we'll just call them incendiary.
Yeah,
that's why they glow.
Yeah, right. It's fire. It's just fire that you're sending down fucking range to see where you're firing,
Mhm.
and they're a lot of fun, right? But you don't do it during a fucking drought, like just dumb, and that shit pisses me off. And they were saying that the state is planning on holding these folks responsible. And I thought, boy, you better hope nobody gets hurt or dies, because and I do believe in holding people responsible for that, because, hey, let's look at it. If you had not done this and set the field on fire that set the goddamn planet on fire, these people wouldn't have died or gotten hurt. So it's kind of on you there, Sparky.
Yeah. Sparky.
I think, I think most of the ones here in Colorado, they were stating were lightning, kind of a natural causes kind of thing. So, which is,
I think I was reading an article that said their defense in court was just going to be to play "We Didn't Start the Fire" as loud as they could to the courtroom.
Oh, give yourself a verbal diarrhea. Come on.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Verbal diarrhea.
But I am liking this increased level of participation that you've shown in the last 3 or 4 episodes, where you're bringing things to the table, and it's good.
That should be,
but they're not all gold.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay. I'm quantity over quality over here.
That's right. And if they were all gold, he wouldn't need us, right? Yeah, it's been it's been a shitty year. Like, and I'm not just saying that to kind of jump on the trend of WTF 2020, but it really has. It's just like we've got I think one of these wildfires we've had in Colorado, I believe, is one of the biggest they've ever had, or biggest they've had in
We're the best.
No,
we got the highest score.
We've had record heat waves out in fucking California, like Death Valley
beetles,
fucking bark beetles. That create high temps. I'm confused.
No, here's the thing. there have been various attempts to go out and pull out a lot of these dead trees, but you can ride through whatever mountain range that you want to in Colorado, and about 15% of the trees out there will be dead
Yeah.
because of bark
Yeah.
beetles. And the out here in Colorado, it's basically a high desert. And what we wind up with is we have some thunderstorms that roll through, that the air will be so dry as it rains, it's evaporating before it hits the ground. So you'll have all the classic shit that a thunderstorm has, except for the damn rain. So when the thunderstorms roll through, you get these lightning strikes, and Colorado's got so many remote areas that it only recently did fire towers. For the most part, they've sort of fallen off because of advanced monitoring tools and the whole nine. But they've had fire monitoring stations out here for years, where like a storm would roll through, you'd get a lightning strike on a tree, that tree would catch on fire, and you had somebody whose whole job was to sit on top of a mountain all day long and scan the 360-degree view and look for smoke. And when he or she would find the smoke, they would mark the coordinates, mark it on a map, and then call it down to somebody, and then they would send the people to go put that fire out.
And then he would talk to the other lady in the other fire tower, and they would build a relationship with each other. And then at the end of the season, when he went to go home, he would go to the other fire tower, and she would already be gone, even though it was really his one true love. Firewatch.
Okay, we'll go with that.
I'm sorry. No one's played Firewatch? No one's played Firewatch yet? Okay, I'm sorry.
No one's played Firewatch yet. Just like I have these things that I go out there on a limb on, like yours. That was yours, buddy.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
What have I haven't played
Verbal diarrhea.
I haven't played much of anything lately. I'm trying to think of the last. Oh yeah, I tried Flight Simulator 2020. Got it for my birthday. Beautiful game. I swear to God that with a keyboard and mouse, it's probably easier to just jump in a Cessna and figure it the fuck out than to control
The
it.
thing about Flight Simulator is that it uses every key on your goddamn keyboard. It's like, no, you got to hit the number pad 7, not the regular 7 to pull up the landing gear.
I just barrel roll to my death mostly. Like, it'll start to bank, and I hit the other side, and then it banks way too far that way, and banks too, and I just wibble wobble until I roll and crash and die. And I'm like, well, fuck. So, moral of the story: don't ever get in a plane with me. Which really, I shouldn't have to tell anybody that, but
We're on the no-fly list anyway.
I probably am at this point. If not, give it a couple more fucking podcasts. Play a ton of StarCraft 2. I've been playing StarCraft since the late 90s, I think. And of course, Gears. I haven't played Gears of War in a while. Or the Swedish game. What was it?
Generation Zero.
Yeah, Generation Zero. So
yeah, it's fun. It's just repetitive.
Yeah,
it's like
a lot
you
of
just shoot robots and then go to the next checkpoint and then shoot more robots.
Right.
And then go to the next checkpoint and then more robots.
More robots. I was talking to a woman last night. She plays Horizon
Zero Dawn.
Zero Dawn. Yeah, that actually looks pretty decent. I haven't checked into it though. I always wanted to play Last of Us because we were talking and she said she's a PS4 player, and fuck, I almost bought a PS4.
Shouldn't the PS4 stuff be coming to Steam soon?
I don't know. Is that how that works?
PS4 said, or Sony said that the PlayStation exclusives are going to be on Steam.
Oh.
So I think we're going to get to a point where you don't have to buy the PlayStation to get the exclusives, which is cool because that's the only reason I would buy a PlayStation.
They wouldn't be exclusives at that point, though, would they?
No, they wouldn't.
Yeah. So it is curious how they do that, and I get it, right? It goes back to Doug and I were having a conversation just about content, right? Netflix has become the powerhouse that they are because of their content. Not even because of the shit that they've licensed or bought or used. It's their originals, but I mean, HBO did it back in the day, and Showtime and all these other, and now you got Hulu, and Amazon Prime even has some good, content.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that the consoles, I bitch about it because I don't want to have to buy, every fucking console that comes out. I think if I did buy one, it would probably be an Xbox, just because I am predominantly a PC gamer, and they have gone cross-platform pretty well.
There's a ton of Play Anywhere titles where if you buy it on Xbox, you can play it on, because I have Gears on Xbox, and that's why I can play it on PC.
Yeah, and that I think is where Microsoft really made a good choice, or it was a good idea for them to do that, I think. Because again, I'm not a console gamer, but if I were to buy anything, it would probably be an Xbox. The PlayStations are not bad. It's funny, man. It's like iPhone versus fucking Android. I love watching people
Never been
of the PlayStation.
I've just never been a fan of their controller.
I had see the
back from the days of the original PS1.
Yeah.
And PS1, PS2. I'd go over to a friend of mine's house, and he had a PlayStation. I didn't. I was more of an Xbox guy at that point. And there were lots of golfing games. And golfing games, there's always something funky with the controls. You aim this way, you hit the button again, slider starts going, the slider comes back. And there was this one, I can't remember the name of it, but it was these bunch of basically caricature people that were playing golf. And one of the things that you had to do in order to hit a shot was pull the stick straight back and straight forward if you wanted to hit a straight shot. When your hand is sitting at this weird 45-degree angle,
Yep.
pulling it back straight and then going forward straight was a huge motherfucking problem.
See, and I always thought, though, that the Xbox controllers, I thought they were huge. Right?
Yeah, I preferred the PlayStation controllers.
Same.
And I was on PlayStation for a while because I didn't want to pay for online. And then I realized why you pay for online when PSN got hacked and went down for 2 months.
Yeah, that's I think as far as online gaming or that network, Microsoft always had the one up on PlayStation or on Sony, right? And it didn't have to be that way. It just, obviously, whoever was in charge of that did a shit job of handling things.
But when you don't charge people for online, dude, you have no budget to fucking...
Yeah, but you're Sony at the same time, right? You've been doing it
That's
since
true.
the 70s.
Yeah.
You've been making fucking bank since the 70s.
Well, now they both charge, so I just went to Xbox because that was the only thing keeping me on PlayStation.
Yeah, like I said, the integration between Windows 10 and Xbox has been really impressive. So I think
and you can join an Xbox party from PC and shit. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, Gears. I remember when Gears, I think it was 4, started that, where you could you would, when your party would join, you would see either a picture of a PC or a picture of a controller, and that would tell you what they were on. And there's a lot of back and forth about controller versus mouse and keyboard.
If it's multiplayer like PvP, I don't really agree with that. But if it's co-op, I mean, what the fuck's the difference at that point?
That's true. Yeah, that's true too. The theory being that you can aim easier and quicker with a mouse and a keyboard.
You definitely can.
I think so, right? I mean,
well, you can install an aimbot easier on a PC. Yeah, I can tell you that shit.
Yeah, right. That's true too. Yeah, without a doubt. But I grew up in the world Nintendo. Again, I was probably about 10 or 12 when I got my first Nintendo with Legend of Zelda bundled with it. And God, the hours I burned on that fucking thing. I lived.
That would have been like NES, right?
Yeah, the original.
Fuck yeah.
I quit with fucking Nintendo after the 64, right? And you guys probably know this, but the original Sony PlayStation was supposed to be the Nintendo 64. Nintendo had licensed Sony and said, "Hey, build us a disc-based gaming system." So Sony does their thing. It's fucking awesome. And Nintendo goes, "Psych, We're going to go with cartridge. We've decided we're going to stick with cartridges for a while. Now that said,
they didn't like the load
Yeah.
times. That's what the whole thing was.
that being said, the N64 was a fucking pimp console. Everything about it, the games, the games that were produced for the N64 were awesome. Some of my favorite games were 64 games.
There were PlayStation 1 games that they made on the N64, and they had to compress the fuck out of them because the cartridge actual
To get 'em
storage
over.
space.
I didn't know that. That makes
Yeah,
a lot of
it's
sense.
really small.
That
It's
makes
really
a lot of
fucking
sense.
small.
Yeah, but again, as Doug said, your read times would be almost immediate.
Yeah, literally solid state.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. And then the thing about Nintendo is then they kind of went off the fucking reservation with. Then it was the GameCube. So now you
Dude,
have
I like the GameCube, dude.
the only thing.
But
Well, as somebody who had started with the
I
original,
loved the GameCube
so
controller.
Nintendo to Super Nintendo, nothing was backwards compatible. Super Nintendo to N64, nothing was backwards compatible. N64 to fucking GameCube, nothing was backwards compatible. And it just got annoying. And then the PlayStation 1 and 2, I think there was some compatibility there. I think 2 and 3. Of course, as you went further along,
I think you could play PS1 games on the PS2.
Yeah.
Because I think they were
It
still
was
CD
backwards
based.
compatible one generation for the most
Yeah,
part.
exactly. You're talking
That's the way PlayStation has done
Yeah.
most of their
and
stuff.
I appreciated that. And then you had the Dreamcast, which was just abysmal.
Womp, womp, womp.
Yeah, it had some.
Well,
It was a good
it was a good
console. It just
console.
wasn't managed well. You had piss poor copyright protection that was easy to hack. So, and then I want to say that it was the Dreamcast that it was kind of like the Atari, where anybody could build a game for it. So the quality of games went to shit. Like that was I was reading one time that with Atari, one of the problems with it, and maybe it was one of the versions of the Atari, is that they kind of just put the code out there and anyone could build a game. So it was like, I got an Atari game. And
So you didn't have to go through Atari to.
No.
Oh no!
They just
It was.
build a game. So right,
I think that was the Jaguar.
Was it?
That was really short lived.
yeah, I'd have to research exactly, but I know it was Atari that had the problem, and it's one of the reasons that Nintendo was as militant as they were about you had to get licensed by Nintendo in order to run it.
Well, there was a machine that you could bootleg Nintendo games on that a bunch of developers used before they approached Nintendo with their game. You could rip a Nintendo cartridge to CD
Nice.
and then put it in your PC and basically edit it and do whatever you wanted. And I think it connected directly to the PC over parallel. So you could even dump the ROM and then edit it and then push it back out.
That's what people don't realize is they don't think about the fact that, there were devices out there that you could copy, Nintendo games and things like that. Of course, they weren't made to the public. And if that would have, 20, 30 years later with the internet, you could get online on fucking eBay and probably find one,
Yep. They had to ban them, and then they tried to skirt the ban, and it was a weird thing, but legitimate developers were using it anyway.
Sure, because there has to be some sort of method out there to, like you said, edit and improve and et cetera. But yeah, you didn't have to, and if you think about it, right, PC gaming is absolutely the same way. Any motherfucker can throw a game up on Steam.
I love getting shitty games because I think it's so fun. This guy downloaded Unity 2 days ago.
And now,
let's see what the fuck he did.
That's my favorite or least favorite, depending on how you put it, is the DayZ game, right? Right? When it was an Arma 3 mod that some dude just made, it was phenomenal. It was oh, this game is so much fun. So then the people who developed Arma decide, well, we're going to get this guy in and we're going to build this game from scratch. And the dude flaked out on him, right? He wasn't a real game fucking developer. Get the fuck out of here. He was a modder and he dicked around and
he was 15, I guess.
Right. And so he left and went to do another project, which I've never heard anything about since. And they've just turned DayZ into garbage, pure fucking garbage. And it makes me so mad because it had so much potential. It had great storyline, if you will. It's been in early access. I it might still fucking be in early access. It's been
Dude, that's the main that's
10
literally
years
the
of early
dumbest
access.
trick. That's the dumbest trick in the book is releasing a broken game, not fixing it, and then just saying it's early access and charging full price for
And
it.
it's like Doug has a rule. He won't buy early access. I will.
I will, dude. There's some game like if it's good, I'll get it.
I've
Like
pulled
there
some
are a lot of games that
I've
are
pulled
early
some
access.
neat early access games, yeah, that were fun, even if they never finished them. I think Subsistence, that one that you and I played a little bit.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's ever coming out early access, but it
No, I
was
don't either. I think it's stuck in, dev hell. But it's what it is fun, and it's a neat game for what it is, right? And I'll drop 10, $20 on that. It's when these motherfuckers come out at $40 and I'm like, you want a triple A rated or triple A title rated title money for an early access game? Hold the
but
fuck.
when the full game comes out, you'll have it.
Yeah. Until you have to rebuy the motherfucker, dicks. So
No,
Yeah, that's a load of shit.
if the real game comes out, you'll get it because you bought the early access.
See, that's the thing about the AAA titles that people don't really get. You'll have somebody that they've been working on a game that they've had in development for anywhere from 2 to 5 years, and the outfit that's producing it, they've been funding the thing the entire time, sinking millions and millions of dollars into it. And then up until the last couple of years, it's gotten a little bit worse, where, they do like the final 6 to 9 months is them doing like bug testing. And that's all they're looking for, and the game comes out and it has very few bugs in it. But I really do believe that some of these larger places have seen just some of the absolute shit that's come out as early access, and then they put it out there for basically the players who are paying for it to do the bug testing
Absolutely.
for them.
A lot of cost comes
and
from
that's been more of a thing, but I have a real problem. It's like somebody can tell me an early access game is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and my mind immediately goes back to when I think you even bought DayZ for me, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably.
Dan, you bought DayZ and I installed it, and I couldn't even get to the goddamn loading screen before it aired.
Yeah, you were having a hell of a time with it. I remember that. And, people don't realize that a good deal of cost for a lot of products comes from that QC/bug testing, right? I worked at Guitar Center for years, and there was like a Fender Strat, right? You've got different flavors of Fender Strats, but you had your, Chinese, I think they were Korean made, those made in Mexico, and then you had all the way up to like the American Strats and stuff. And one of the big differences was that some of these guitars would come off the line and hold on.
He's getting a little drink.
Are you done? I mean, you tell me.
Just whenever you're ready. Just whenever you're ready, Barker. You're good. Oh no. I did not mean to hit that. My keyboard.
So we had of course, some of your materials were better in your American Strat, your $1,500 up to $10,000 guitars, but a big portion of that cost would come from the Mexi Strats. They'd come off the line, get thrown in a box, shipped to the store. Like that was it. If there was something wrong with it, you figured it out when when a guy like me pulled it out of the box and tuned it up and went, whoa, it looked like a fucking bow and arrow. But then your higher end guitars and like your Paul Reed Smiths and stuff would come off the line, and a luthier who was also a accomplished musician would sit and just fucking rail on that thing for
No. His name was Luther.
Luther, the guy who works on the guitars. Hate you.
Yeah, Luther.
And just like we've talked about this before. I think it was Realistic was Radio Shack's brand, and I think they were made by Panasonic. And I had a buddy that worked in one of the factories in Cincinnati, and he said, "Yeah, man," he said, the stuff comes off the line and there's this little hopper and it throws one down this line and it throws one down this line. He said this one, the guts get dropped down into a different cabinet and a realistic emblem goes on the front, and this one Panasonic. Well, then the Panasonics every 5 or 6, they would pull off the line. They would test all the solders and everything and say, okay, looks like the machines are running right, and they'd send it off. And then you get into your higher dollar stuff, and every single one that comes off the line gets tested. Same with Crate and Ampeg. Guy, I got this little award for selling a bunch of Ampeg, which isn't hard. The shit sells itself. And I jokingly told him, I said, yeah, I play Crate because I can't afford an Ampeg. And it's all owned by a company called St. Louis Music. And he said, dude, you want to know what the real difference is? He says, a lot of the components are the same. He said, the big difference is your higher end Ampeg stuff comes off the line. A guy sits, checks all the solders, all the, ohms and shit like that, make sure everything's right. And then we put it in a box and ship it out. He said, the Crate stuff goes in a box and it gets shipped out. A lot of the guts and stuff are the same. And that's, and I've heard that story from more and more people that have done manufacturing, that a lot of your low end stuff, like a lot of your knockoff stuff, what's interesting about a lot of knockoff stuff, some of it is just complete bullshit. A lot of it is manufactured by the higher end manufacturers, and they sell it off unbranded to another company. And they do that because then you get to corner both markets, right? You get the guy that can only pay $99 for the thing. He can't afford the $1,000 thing or the $500 thing. So they get one, they slap their logo on it and ship it out, and that's it. This other company goes through, makes sure each one works. So when people say, well, they can't be the same because those are junk. Well, it's because they sold 10 times more than the higher end guys. And none of them were ever checked for quality, not a single fucking one, It's just little manufacturing secrets like that are interesting to me because it just goes to show how kind of fucked up the market really is in most cases, So, but yeah, and I think gaming is no different, right? You have a game that just gets pumped out for $20. Your guys that are playing are like, yeah, I'm stuck in a wall. What the fuck?
But they already bought it.
Right. You've got the money in your fucking pocket. And I mean, how many early access games, like you said, never leave early access, or they just shut it down completely?
I'd say that's probably 35% of Steam.
I would say that there's a good chunk of that. And then you got to remember too, like the AAA rated titles, you hear a lot of stuff from the developers where they just really rail on companies that put out the AAA rated titles about the working conditions and about how they don't love it anymore. And it's all about profit and all that. Well, brother, it's always been about profit, right? I mean, you make the game, you love the game.
If it wasn't about profit, then why don't you release your game for free?
Thank you, right? I mean, but then you hear about studios like Techland comes to mind. They do the Dying Light games, and they, like Dying Light 2 has been this labor of love, right? And they won't release it until it's just right where they want it. And so there's a balance between, we are a small studio, we want to put out quality, we want to make money because we need to pay our bills, but we don't want to put bullshit out either.
If you're a publicly traded giant AAA fucking studio,
it's about
you can't sit on a game until it's done. You have to put the fucking game out.
And you do market research, and right now, like the first person shooter just dominates the fucking market. And I'm not going to say that I haven't enjoyed some FPS in my day, but I'm kind of bored with it. I'm bored with the Fortnites and the
all the battle royale games.
Yeah, battle royale has just bored me to fucking tears at this point. But people still love them. All of the data says that they still love them. So these companies
they're still buying
the companies are still pumping them out. So when everybody's like, "Oh, there's nothing," but well, it's because that's what people are.
Blame the consumer. They're dictating what the fuck
exactly
companies put out.
Your big companies are doing their market research and saying, "Well, people still want these bullshit first-person shooter games."
People want to fucking say, let's just reskin Fortnite again.
Right.
Let's put them in fucking army fatigues this time.
Exactly.
But there's the new dance.
Yeah, right.
Dude, that is the dumbest shit.
That is smart as shit because Fortnite's free, right? But it makes so much goddamn money.
Right.
Because it's only online, so you have to flex on everybody. So you buy the fucking 99-cent fucking or the $5 skin or the new dance or whatever. It
Right.
makes so much money and it's a free
Right.
game.
It's really interesting to watch. One of the things that I did not realize, I think Adam and I figured this out, and we were both like, "Oh, what?" We were kind of dogging on the makers of Fortnite,
Epic Games.
Epic. We were
Yeah.
like, fuck those guys, you dicks, and because they're in this battle with Apple and everything. And I was like, what the fuck? They ain't made nothing except for Fortnite. And Adam pulls up their list of games, or I think we both put up their list of games. We're all, oh shit.
Yeah, they make a ton. I think they actually made Subnautica.
And they
I might
made
be wrong.
Gears of War.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
Epic makes a lot of stuff, and when Epic was making Gears, that's when Cliff Bleszinski and all of that stuff was on board. And, Gears was sort of a revolutionary game. It borrowed it wasn't the straight up first person shooter. They kind of went Halo style to where you were looking over somebody's shoulder. But the aesthetics of the game were so different than anything that came before it that it was ridiculous. It actually had a lot of bearing on the specs of the Xbox 360 because they were wanting to increase the RAM that was in the Xbox 360 console. And, Microsoft was bitching at them before it came out of, it would almost be cheaper for us to include a gold plated controller with every console than it would be to put this amount of RAM in it. And with, the dev kit that they had, they showed them the difference in Gears of War in the graphics with, this amount of RAM in it versus this amount of RAM in it. And they went with it.
That's awesome.
But it's been a flagship game for them, and it's got a neat story. I've always said that, of all the like video games that they've turned into movies, Assassin's Creed, WTF, I think Gears could actually be a franchise if you did it right, because you could start at the beginning and
you'd have to have some big beefy motherfuckers playing those roles. That's all I'm saying.
Hey man, we'll get the Rock. He did a really good job in Doom. So we can. Yeah, I think that you could scale all that, but I would love to see. Of course, I'd like to see a StarCraft movie.
Just make everything else in the movie small,
really small, right? Make the guys bigger. But I think that there's.
Oh, I'd love to see a StarCraft movie with a Zerg rush coming over a fucking hill. Oh my god!
There's some fan made shit that's really good. So I couldn't imagine what a studio would do. But I really seriously think Gears could be a franchise if done correctly. And if you think about like the Chinese market, where a lot of your sci-fi and action movies are made for nowadays, it would go over well there because of the storyline and how it works. I think it could be sold over there pretty well too. But yeah, I'd like to see it. But apparently I am a minority because like I said, they're doing Doom remake after Doom remake after Doom remake. Like, please stop. The game doesn't even lend itself to a fucking movie. It's that game is all about action and not about content.
Yeah, moving fast and shooting and gore.
Which is great. I love Doom. Don't get me fucking wrong. I'm just saying it's.
Oh, you've got to move. That is one game. It's like where a Call of Duty or something may encourage you to sit there and crouch and cover, take pot shots, move around a little bit. Doom, if you're not jumping around like a fucking squirrel on crack, shooting everything that moves, you're gonna die, and you're gonna die quickly.
Like a hot blonde with big tits. She doesn't have to have a lot of substance.
Have you guys played the new Doom Eternal game? It's fun as fuck.
Really? I haven't even. Yes. I don't even know if I own it actually.
As they make more Doom games, you just have to move faster and faster.
Yes, I can attest to that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't think I downloaded it. I don't think I downloaded it because it was single player, and my ADD just doesn't even lend itself to fucking.
Dude, the only multiplayer they had was 2v1 fucking battle. It was weird, dude. Like one of you played an OP dude, and then the other two had to take him down.
Okay,
And that's the only multiplayer it has, which kind of sucks.
because wasn't the last Doom?
Yeah, the last one,
multiplayer.
it had some mods where you could get a map, and it was that there was one game mode that I kind of liked, that it was more or less like horde mode in
that's
Gears,
what the one I
where
remember.
you had a couple of people and it kept spawning shit, and that was
Yeah.
fun.
Get up to like ridiculous levels where it was just like, we're fucked. Ha ha ha. It's the only thing you can play in a video game. You're like, we're so fucked. Dead. Like, what? Nowhere else, in no other like sport would you be like, we're gonna get fucked.
We're gonna lose.
This is awesome.
It's like getting on Gears and turning the difficulty up past. Once you start getting out of intermediate, it starts getting interesting. Advanced is tough, and insane, it's crazy. That is like, okay, I'm bent over. Here's the lube.
and Doug says, I am bent over. Here's the lube. I don't know about anyone else, but I think that's a great place to wrap things up.
I'm bent over, and here's the lube.
Hell yeah.
Awesome title.
Yeah, I'm gonna end on that.
And lube.